I welcome you to chapter 2 of Corinthians, made into a story. Chapter 2 of Corinthians. And the hidden wisdom. The air in the Corinthian agora was sick with the scent of spices, sweat, and debate. Every corner featured a speaker, a stoic lecturing on duty, praising pleasure, mesmerizing listeners with rhetorical flourish. In this city, Corinth's language was power, and eloquence was currency. Apollonius, a young man of considerable inherited wealth and sharp intellect, found himself drawn not to the Christian assembly, but to the marble palaces and temples where the famed orator Corinth held court. Corinth was a master of speaking, of oration, weaving intricate arguments that satisfied the mind and thrilled the ear. He spoke of the cosmos as a perfect rational machine, of the human soul as a spark of divine logic, and of true happiness achieved through much contemplation. Apollonius was a new believer in Christ, baptized by Paul himself, but he still yearned for the intellectual respect of being an orator, elite, and commanding the language well. The Christian community or assembly, by contrast, felt stark, often filled with laborers, freedmen, and slaves. And the core of their message, the story of a Jewish craftsman executed on a Roman cross. It lacked the grandeur and philosophical renaissance Apollonius sought. One evening, Apollonius confronted his former teacher Titus, now an elder in the church. Titus, I heard Corinth speak today. Apollonius began, his voice edged with frustration. He spoke of the soul's ascent to pure reason. His arguments were like beautifully carved columns, perfectly structured, strong and majestic. And then I hear our teaching. We speak only of a death, a shameful, broken death. Titus, a former merchant who still bore the calluses of his trade, was trimming a lamp wick. He looked up, his eyes steady. And what do you find lacking in a shameful death, Apollonius? Lacking? Well, it lacks wisdom. It lacks dynamics and power. Paul came here, and I remember his words. They were plain, simple. He confessed himself even weak. The philosophers mock us, Titus. They ask, where is your logic? Where is your subtle arguments? Where is your compelling eloquence? We have nothing to answer them but a blood-soaked cross and a story of empty glory. How are we going to win them with such foolishness? Titus sat down on a stool, placing the lamp carefully on a small table. The single flame cast a warm, humble light. You remember Paul's coming well, Apollonius, Titus said gently. You heard him preach not long after he arrived from Athens, where he tried to debate on their terms. But here he chose a different way. He chose to empty himself of the very things you respect or value. Titus quoted Paul's words, holding up his calloused hands, And I, brethren, when I came to you, I came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. 1 Corinthians 2, 1-2. He determined not to know anything else, Titus emphasized. It was a deliberate choice. Paul could have charmed Corinth with Greek philosophy. He was trained in it. But he knew that if your faith rested on his brilliant arguments, your faith would be founded on the shifting ground of human cleverness and not on the rock of God's power. But why the weakness? Apollonius pleaded. Why declare himself poor and fearful? Titus stood walking over to the simple clay wall, and I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of men's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. 1 Corinthians 2, 3-5. That's the point, Apollonius, Titus concluded. Paul's message had to be simple, even shameful, so that when a hardened pagan like you repented, there would be no doubt where the power came from. It came from Paul. It didn't come from Paul's mouth, but from the Spirit's demonstration on your heart. Apollonius fell silent, the echo of his own conversion, a sudden, unbidden wave of conviction that broke through all his rational defenses, ringing true in his memory. Apollonius, though humbled, was not satisfied. But Titus, the letter says Paul did speak wisdom among the mature. So there is a wisdom for us, but what is it? Is it a secret doctrine revealed only after conversion? Titus smiled, shaking his head. It is hidden, yes, but not in secret scrolls. It is the wisdom that Corinth and all the rulers of this age cannot grasp. They cannot understand it because it's not based on creation. It's based on the Creator's plan. Titus explained that the wisdom Paul spoke was not about rhetoric, but about God's eternal purpose, the deep, previously concealed plan for humanity's salvation. Howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are perfect or mature, yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught. We speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom, which God ordained before the world unto our glory. 1 Corinthians 2, 6-7. Imagine the most intricate architectural blueprint, Apollonius, Titus said, gesturing to the city outside. Corinth can admire the finished building. He can analyze its proportions and marvel at its pillars. But he does not have the blueprint itself. He does not know the mind of the chief architect who designed the structure before the foundation stone was ever laid. God's hidden wisdom, Titus continued, is that blueprint. It is the divine plan that climaxed in the cross. Paul calls the rulers of this age the political rulers, the intellectual philosophers, the princesses that come to naught. Why? Which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. 1 Corinthians 2:8. Apollonius gasped. The simplicity of the truth was staggering. Corinth and the Roman proconsul believed they were wise, exercising their rational will and political power. Yet in their ultimate act of power, the crucifixion, they unknowingly executed the single most powerful act of God's redemptive plan. Their wisdom had blinded them to the point of killing the Lord of glory. Their arrogance made them God's instruments. Apollonius felt a rush of intellectual excitement, a feeling far greater than any oration he had ever given him. Then this is wisdom, this blueprint, Titus. How do we obtain it? Not by intellect, you say? How? It is not found, Titus said, it's revealed. Titus guided him to the next verses, which contrasted human perception with divine revelation. But as it is written, eye has not seen nor ear heard, neither have entered into the hearts of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. 1 Corinthians 2, 9-10. You see, the eyes of the intellect cannot see it. The ears of philosophy cannot hear it. The heart of man cannot imagine it. The wisdom is too grand, too contrary to our expectations. It had to be given to us by the Spirit, who knows the mind of God, just as your own spirit knows your own thoughts. Titus explained that the natural man who operates only on the basis of earthly experience and human reason cannot receive these things because they are spiritually discerned. The natural man judges the simplicity of the cross as foolishness. But the natural man receives not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. 1 Corinthians 2:14. When you listen to Corinth, you engage your human wisdom, Titus concluded, standing over the flickering lamp. When you heard Paul, you were exposed to the wisdom of God, and the Spirit gave you the eyes to see it. That is the fundamental difference. The philosophers have the world's wisdom, which is slated to fade away. We have the mind of Christ, revealed by the Spirit, which gives us understanding of the world's true destiny and our place in it. Apollonius looked at the small lamp, then back toward the distant marble-lit porches where Corinth was still holding court. The orator's powerful words now sounded thin, like brass gongs, compared to the solid life-giving truths of the crucified Christ. I asked, how could we win them with foolishness? Apollonius said, a genuine smile returning to his face. Now I see. We don't win them with rhetoric, we win them by the Spirit's power, which makes their wisdom look foolish. He picked up a simple clay oil jug. I will not seek the marble columns anymore, Titus. I will seek the mind of Christ, no matter how simple it sounds to the world. The simple light of the lamp, powered by oil and wick, outshone the elaborate, empty philosophy of Corinth that night, proving that true power resided not in eloquence, but in the Spirit-given revelation of the cross. Okay, I hope you enjoyed 1 Corinthians chapter 2, made into story. And we will move on to chapter 3, and I trust and hope that you will share this, and put a like on the YouTube channel if you, I'd much appreciate it, and share this with one or two other friends that would like to take this journey into the streets of Corinth. Okay, God bless and have a good day.